Good afternoon or morning, whenever you choose to watch this. My name is Bragg. I'm with the University of Arkansas Systems Division of Agriculture. I'm an instructor of 4-H youth development, and I'm going to share a little bit about how we're getting our youth across the state of Arkansas involved in archaeological sciences through our program, Digging 4-H. So basically 4-H, where does it all fit in the grand scheme of things? And it was started in the early 1900s as a way to teach farmers through their children to practice sound agriculture management. We had corn clubs or cooking and canning clubs set up by our land grant universities as a way to show the youth how to outperform their parents, and then the parents would then buy in, and they're not going to get their son growing more corn, getting higher yields in corn production than themselves. So they might adopt the science that was coming out, trying to introduce sound practices. Where that fits in with us is 4-H then came about. We are indeed nationwide, and we are actually international at this point, and we focus a lot of what we do on STEM education, civic engagement, healthy living, and we really emphasize getting our youth life skills and learning by doing as our motto, and then also the importance of community service and service back to their community. It's how we use our head, hands, heart, and health to make our club, community, country, and our world a better place. And then so when it came to it, just a little bit about myself is I started doing 4-H in Deshay County as a county extension agent. Every county in Arkansas has a cooperative extension office where all of our agents have some component of our position where we are devoted to serving the youth of our state. And we didn't have a lot of traditional project areas. A lot of people think of cows, chickens, the basic agriculture type projects, and we don't really have a lot of that in Southeast Arkansas, but we did have a lot of archaeological resources. And so I wanted to make our program something that our youth could be engaged in and learn sound science that applied to everything. But when I went out there wasn't a whole lot. Nationwide, we have our Project Archeology, and we have things at the state level, including the gardening, gathering, and agriculture that the Archaeological Survey has put out. But when it came to 4-H resources, what I found was there was a lot of stuff on collecting of arrowheads, or kind of the fun healthy living, excavating jello molds out of Utah State. But there was a lot really focusing in on the science of why we do archaeology, and that was something that I really wanted to remedy. And so in Arkansas, I began work with implementing some of the project, or first of all, implementing Project Archeology at my county level as an agent, but then when I moved to the state level, getting our agents engaged in it, and really like Project Archeology in the fact that it stresses context, ethics, ID of sites, the role of us as citizens. And then they have two kind of branched areas where you can look at foodways and nutrition, or investigating shelter, where you're looking at aspects of different cultures in the United States and worldwide. And over the past 2 years as a state level employee, I've trained 19 extension agents for investigating shelter, where we were looking at rock art. Unfortunately, the pandemic saw this one have to go into a virtual realm rather than being up on Petit Jean, but it was very well received. And this year we're looking forward to, in 2022, going out to Toltec Mounds, where we're going to do investigating nutrition, where they're going to be cooking their own foods. We've also incorporated elements of prehistoric shooting sports. And so we're really pushing using the atlatls and blow dart guns and the such as part of the shooting sports curricula, kind of getting people to think about ways things traditionally may have been done here in Arkansas. We also developed this wonderful project portfolio, and what these were designed for is for our agents who might not have expertise per se in archaeology, the ability to work with schools, but also to work with their volunteers in a way to teach the science of archaeology. And so these project portfolios came about designed to give not only a basics of 4-H, but and then the lessons, but also how the youth can reflect on it and apply that further on in life, as well as the connections to the Common Core standards in the state, so that if they were to go to a school, they could say, hey, this is how we can help supplement your programming. For instance, in the 6th grade, they look at the prehistoric, they're looking at the evolution, for instance, of foodways over in Mesopotamia. And so we have materials that we can then provide or come in and do lessons with our teachers to help bolster their curricula that they're teaching. I'm going to kind of walk you through these project portfolios. If you're not familiar with 4-H, we go the basics, my pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health for better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. It's the basics of everything that we do in 4-H. We learn by doing, and we're working to make the world just a little better place. The way we do that is everything in 4-H you find is very hands-on. It's experiential learning at its greatest. And so there's a whole number of learning models that we kind of go through why we teach what we call clover buds, or your 5 to 8-year-olds, a little differently than our high school students. It's kind of common sense knowledge, but there's a lot of science that goes behind it, and we want our volunteers or our educators to be familiar with that. And again, this whole experiential learning model of, you let the kids experience something hands-on, and then they have to reflect on it. They share and they process how things happened, and then they apply it to their life later. And so how can they use the skills that they've developed through perhaps putting in a square unit? Well, how do they translate that to something they could use later in life? And so then we go on to, if you want to do this as a 4-H project, because all work in 4-H is focused on doing these various projects. There's 50 projects that we support, and those include your traditional beef or horse hippology kind of things, but we also have robotics. We might have yoga or dance, different projects. Well, archaeology is one of those that we are promoting in the state of Arkansas actively as one of our science, because it incorporates the elements of healthy living and civic engagement through the service that we're doing. And so with these project sheets, we're giving them tools to set goals, age-appropriate activities, resources, and various opportunities. And so you can see for those beginner, those young, we're just getting them, what is an artifact? And just describe what it was like prehistorically in Arkansas, tour sites. And as they progress further along, as they age up, getting them out to volunteer or coming to the training programs that the society hosts, visiting or writing reports, participating in Archeo Olympics. I believe I may have a team interested already for this year. We're fingers crossed that they will show up, but looking more into the technology aspects. And then furthermore, in those project portfolios, we talk about how to expand those experiences out, and then we give them resources of places to utilize those skills or to meet people. So we send them back to the survey or to the society. We get them involved in the national opportunities and visiting our state parks. So many of them don't even realize the opportunities that are right behind them or right in their own backyard. We then provide them 6 to 7 lessons, and these evolve as I keep adding on. And we're trying to give these a kind of an Arkansas twist. So a lot of these are modified or what is it? Let's just say duplication is the sincerest form of flattery. We were taking some of Project Archeology's key elements and making them kind of an Arkansas twist so that the youth stay engaged and say, hey, I've been there, or I've driven past that site. And so we start off with a pre-test so that we know what our youth are coming in. And this is simply having them draw or write, things like, what is archaeology? What does an archaeologist do? What does a site look like? So that way we see all the dinosaurs coming out. We know we have to go back to Bayer basis of, no, we don't dig dinosaurs, we dig. We're interested in human history, not paleontologists. And we also have a series of cards that go along with this that we introduce them to phrases or professions, such as what is a historian, what is an anthropologist versus an archaeologist, what do geologists do? We continue on and look at, picture this, where we're getting them used to terms such as an inference versus an observation. And so we have here is an image from the Hollywood plantation, the Taylor House in Winchester, Arkansas. And we get them looking and making observations based off of this photo. So what can you tell about this site? What about the picture? We point out to the youth to kind of look at the direction of shadows, and can they tell what time of the year is? Can we, when the picture was taken, you know, leaf off versus leaf on, can we tell what time of year it was? What do you think that people were trying to show? But we're getting them to say, hey, not that they're going out to Sunday, but that maybe they're dressed up in clothing or nice outfits. You know, the observation of what they actually are wearing versus what they think they might be doing. Another lesson that's been getting a lot of acclaim across the US actually because of COVID is the whole cookie excavation. And I know that Michelle recently did this as well on her YouTube channels when she was at Parkin. But the cookie excavation is one that we've been using a lot this year because it's easy to do online. And so we have the youth, we give a clear, defined layout of what the lesson looks like, what our overview, our objectives are, the materials they'll need, and then questions to kind of get those kids engaging in the activity, step-by-step activity. So they would put their cookie down here and they'd start excavating and map down here, and they'd have all their cookie crumbs and all their artifacts. And we get them looking at, you know, were there more artifacts in one part of the cookie versus another part? This one actually was just received national recognition from the National Association of Extension 4-H Youth Development Professionals. And so they're really excited about this. And I had the opportunity to present this through Georgia as well as New Jersey remotely. And the kids were thoroughly engaged in it and got a lot of positive feedback, not only from the professionals, but also from the youth. But the big thing about it is when we do this experiential modeling of these programs is that we then have our youth reflect and review. So looking at, you know, the maps and why do we map everything, and getting them to think about the importance of the mapping. And again, the inferences of where these artifacts are. And so they're getting it, starting to lead them into thinking about context, as well as, you know, different ways that we could have maybe examined that cookie without tearing it apart. Once they go through all of the 6 lessons, but also going out on their own, we want them to reflect on the goals that they set regarding archaeology, looking at the service opportunities and the leadership and experiences they have. And so we really stress, again, the non-destructive. We really are not pushing going out and collecting or any of those notions, but getting out, doing some book work, learning from people, volunteering with our survey station staff. And so they go out and they can look at different cultures or explore languages, looking at maps, but also field and lab experiences that they have worked with, and getting those experiences, because in the end, we want them to be able to carefully document everything that they've done, so that in the future, when they're applying for scholarships or awards for their project work, they will have all of that information there. And again, stressing the importance of record keeping, which is so important to our archaeological careers. And then the final element being that we go through and we tie this back to the Common Core, so our schools and our teachers see how what we're doing in 4-H and what we're doing in archaeology ties directly back to what they're trying to teach in the classroom. So, you know, if you're looking at a grade 10, you know, they're learning about, for instance, diverse groups and settlements in Arkansas and the world. Well, they can see these lessons might tie to it. So if they did the why archaeology, or picture this lesson, that they know that those have a direct tie to looking at diverse groups and settlement, this G10-3 spatial pattern and movement that they're required to address in their school curricula. And so again, here you can see up close. So we're looking at geographic representations, you know, explain and create maps. Well, that cookie excavation hits pretty much all 3 of those things. You're looking at the spatial view of this cookie, right? We're looking at the geographic representation, you know, but maybe not the human characteristics, but it's getting that translation so that they're aware of how that lesson could be then brought into, say, an 8th grade classroom or a 7th grade classroom. In the end, what we're trying to do is create an environment where it's really fun, and again, all hands on. So we have playing historic games, or creating moccasins with Katie Gregory there, going down to historic Washington and learning how to map artifacts in the context, the importance of context and relationships. These tricking, I like to call it tricking them to learn. They think they're just playing some sort of little game, whether it's like a battleship laying out artifacts or sorting different artifacts from a 4-H agent's desk. In the end, they're learning critical thinking skills on how to think like a scientist and how to think like an archaeologist. They also get the opportunity to learn through service activities where they're out. This was a few years back where they were helping out at the Hollywood plantation. We had a 4-H quad day. We had well over 60 youth out there observing what the archaeologists were doing during their excavations, and then they got their opportunity to kind of help come screen for the artifacts and get their hands dirty. This young gentleman, I believe, was telling Carl Drexler, or maybe it was Jamie, about the importance that they needed to move that off back so that they could see everything. He wanted every ounce of soil moved on that site. We also encouraged them to participate in the summer training program. I know this is a cheat, but this is my daughter, and as part of her 4-H project, she was learning about archaeology, and so she participated out there at Richards Bridge with us a number of years ago, as did Stephen. And the end goal of this is to get our youth actually not only serving as volunteers, but possibly going on and making a career choice. And these are my 2 success stories. I'm pretty proud of both of them, one more so than the other by no means. Kenny Bragg is currently a sophomore anthropology industrial archaeology major up at Michigan Tech, and Miss Bree Lathrop recently graduated from here at UAM as a history graduate and continues to want to serve archaeology. If you have any questions or comments regarding this, I can always be reached at my cell phone here at 224-5478, or drop me an email. I'll gladly send out our project portfolio and welcome any and all feedback. Thank you.